Welcome to this explainer. For way too long, the whole conversation around artificial intelligence has been completely stuck on the surface. We're all hyperfixated on things like response times, how much compute power a model has, or the flashy branding slapped on the packaging. But today we're going much deeper. We are unpacking a massive paradigm shift, the movement toward building absolute, unshakable trust at the data layer. We really need to explore why true openness in AI isn't just some afterthought or a neat marketing gimmick. It has to be a core, verifiable component of the raw data that feeds the machine in the very first place. Because think about it, if we don't understand the foundational inputs, how can we possibly trust the outputs that are literally starting to run our digital world?
Which brings us to a somewhat uncomfortable truth about the industry right now. OpenAI is, well, all too often, just a label. For years, we've seen this term treated exactly like a shiny sticker that you just slap on at the very end of an opaque assembly line. Here's how it usually goes. A developer builds a massive, closed-off model, trains it on completely undisclosed sources, and then, boom, slaps an open sticker on the finished product right before it ships. Sure, it sounds phenomenal in the marketing materials, but when you scratch even a tiny bit beneath the surface, you realize pretty quickly that a retroactive label tells you absolutely nothing about what actually went into the system. It gives us zero visibility into the data provenance, the systemic vulnerabilities, or how the model is even coming up with its logic.
And this whole reliance on a retroactive label highlights a massive divide in how these systems are built. The traditional approach essentially relies on systemic obscurity. You're building this incredibly sophisticated architecture, but you're basing it entirely on unverified, untraceable inputs. It's like building a house out of mystery rubble and then nailing a safe sign to the roof. The sign means absolutely nothing if the foundation is questionable. On the flip side of this divide, we have what we're calling the Codatta way. Codatta treats openness and trust not as a convenient little tag, but as a rigorous, deliberate process. And that process starts way earlier than most people are looking. It doesn't start at the finished model stage, it begins right down at the foundational data layer. Trust and verifiability have to be engineered from the absolute ground up.
So, what exactly makes up those bad foundations? Well, the industry standard right now often defaults to what is basically scraped noise and synthetic filler. In the frantic rush to build bigger, faster models, a lot of traditional systems just vacuum up literally everything on the open internet, with no discrimination at all. They pull in massive amounts of opaque, unverified automated data, essentially scraping the ambient noise of the web. Some even use existing AI to generate synthetic filler just to artificially pump up the size of their training sets. It's empty calories for a machine learning model. Over time, feeding a system this kind of contextless data damages its structural integrity. It leads directly to the hallucinations and the bizarre logical inconsistencies we see in major models today. Codatta looks at this and actively avoids it, because they know that untrustworthy inputs mathematically guarantee untrustworthy outputs.
Okay, let's dive into this. If they're actively rejecting all that automated noise, what's their actual mechanism? Well, Codatta replaces those indiscriminate web scrapers with a rigorous, human-in-the-loop pipeline. It's a dynamic workflow that starts with real-world contributions, moves into a meticulous review phase, and finishes with strict, uncompromising validation. Human judgment is woven directly into the fabric of this pipeline at every single stage. We're not talking about a handful of engineers locked in a room making guesses. We're talking about thousands of real, individual people actively checking, contextualizing, and validating data every single day. This creates a clear, traceable lineage for every single piece of information that enters their system.
And the direct consequence of all that rigorous human effort? Pure credibility. And let's be honest, credibility is absolutely not a given in the AI space right now. It's something that has to be systematically earned and proven. Think about it. How do you actually prove an AI isn't just hallucinating a response? You trace its logic all the way back to a human being who originally verified that underlying fact. When you have thousands of real people applying human judgment day in and day out to review the inputs, you transform raw, chaotic data into an engineered foundation of truth. That massive-scale daily human validation work is the exact mechanism that gives these datasets their structural integrity. You know the exact provenance, and you know a real person signed off on its accuracy.
Now, you might logically assume that a company putting this much massive effort into curating these incredibly precise, credible datasets would guard them fiercely, right? Like lock them away in a secure corporate vault to maintain a monopoly. But surprisingly, they don't. What makes Codatta's approach so entirely unique to the broader concept of openness is their actual commitment to public access. Get this. They take between 1% and 10% of their premium, highly curated commercial datasets, and they share them completely publicly on Hugging Face. They are actively exposing their exact foundation to the wider community, setting a precedent that transparency really should be an industry standard, not just an anomaly.
And this brilliantly illustrates the caliber of what they're actually releasing to the public. They are providing real,
usable slices of production-level data. This isn't the rejected low-quality noise that ended up on the cutting room floor. It's not some artificial synthetic scrap meant to just appease open-source advocates. Anyone out there right now, whether you're a machine learning researcher, an independent developer, or just analyzing data structures, can go over to huggingface.co/Codatta. You can inspect the data provenance with your own eyes, train your proprietary models on it, and build highly functional applications. Why? Because you are accessing the exact same human-validated datasets that power enterprise-grade commercial systems. It's a radical level of transparency that mathematically proves their commitment to trust at the data layer.
And why does this matter so much to us? Because of the sheer real-world scope involved. We are talking about data sets that span across healthcare diagnostics, complex robotics, high-volume e-commerce, global fashion trends, and precise on-chain crypto data. This isn't just fluffy demo content designed to make a lightweight model look super smart in a tightly scripted presentation. No, this data accurately reflects how complex, unpredictable systems actually behave out there in the wild. If you're relying on an AI model to execute financial logic based on on-chain crypto data or to assist in nuanced healthcare analysis, you desperately need the absolute certainty that the system learned from real, rigorously checked inputs. The breadth of their data proves that this human-in-the-loop methodology actually scales effectively to the most critical, high-stakes industries we interact with every single day.
Ultimately, this represents a fundamental shift in the entire AI timeline. When the broader tech industry talks about open AI purely at the model stage, honestly, it is far too late in the game to ensure actual integrity. The architectural cake is already baked. If the initial data was contaminated with bias or hallucinations, the resulting model is compromised, regardless of how transparent the final weights or labels are. Codatta, conversely, operates on the philosophy of the data stage. They are placing a massive, structural bet that true openness, and more importantly, verifiable trust must be definitively established before the training compute ever gets turned on. Trust before training. It completely rewires how we should think about developing intelligent systems.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer. I really want to leave you with a final, provocative question to chew on. If the inputs aren't real and traceable, is your AI really open? It forces all of us to redefine our baseline standards for the tools we use and build. True openness only actually means something if we possess the ability to trace a system's logic all the way back to a verified human source. So the next time you interact with an intelligent system or integrate a new model into your workflow, ask yourself about its foundation. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those big, structural questions, and I will see you next time.